All right, I think we will be getting started. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. It is beautiful weather outside, so we're really thankful that everyone is here with us. And I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Grace. I am the Trail Tourism Program Manager for Anacostia Trails Heritage Area, otherwise known as Maryland Milestones. And we welcome you tonight. Aha. Okay. I just want to get into some housekeeping. This lecture will be recorded and it will be available within a few days on our YouTube channel. All participant audio and video is turned off, and questions can be submitted through the question box. And if you are having technical difficulties, you can send whatever your issue is to me and I will try to help you. And there will be a Q&A after the talk. So Maryland Milestones is also Anacostia Trails Heritage Area. We are one of the state certified heritage areas in the state of Maryland. We encompass the northern Prince George's County region. We're made up of 17 communities. We have a budget of $200,000. We have a full-time staff, 2 part-time staff, and a volunteer. We're primarily focused with history, art, culture, and natural resources, and we provide grants through the state. We also provide technical assistance and partnership building. This is a map of our heritage area with Laurel to the north, Colmar Manor to the south, and Bowie to the east. And this is our Heritage Center located in the Pyramid Atlantic Art Center in downtown Hyattsville. The car is no longer there, but it is open, so you are free to visit if you'd like to. And tonight we're going to hear from Anne E. Bruder as she discusses preservation priority bridges in Maryland and special bridges in Prince George's County. Anne is the Senior Architectural Historian for the Maryland Department of Transportation State Highway Administration, where she has worked since 2001. From 1997 to 2001, she worked for the Maryland Historical Trust. Since 2001, she has managed the Maryland Historic Highway Bridges Program for MDOT, State Highways Administration, and oversaw the investigations of the state's bridges built between 1947 and 1975. As a transportation historian, she investigates Maryland's history by examining the built environments and landscapes associated with MDOT SHA projects throughout the state. Ms. Bruder contributed and presented on the exhibit Ms. Maud, Women's Contribution to Mid-Century Modernism in Maryland, about the work of 12 20th century women architects in Maryland. She has also spoken about historic bridges to the Maryland Historical Trust's Board of Trustees in 2014 and the Maryland Heritage Area Authority's board meeting in 2018. She received her AB from Smith College and her MAH from the University of Virginia. So now I'm going to stop sharing my slides and Anne will pull hers up and we will get started.
All right, thank you. I want to thank Grace and the Maryland Milestones Heritage Area for inviting me to speak to you all about SHA's Historic Highway Bridge Program through a tour of the state's bridges, including some in Prince George's County, such as the Anacostia River Bridge project from 1914, which shows the earlier wooden bridge. You can just barely see it. I'm sorry, this is such a, this photo has been damaged and we haven't tried to correct any of them. But on the left is the wooden bridge. The 4-span concrete arch bridge is in the middle, and then just off in sort of in the center on the far right side is the Washington Spa and Laurel Railroad or Trolley. I don't know that I'm saying that name right. I apologize. I meant to look it up and didn't get it written down. But we have a collection of over 1,000 photos showing bridge and highway improvements since 1908, when the governor made the State Roads Commission the agency to manage the state's highways and bridges. And now it is the Department of Transportation State Highway Administration. Maryland's historic bridges represents the engineering legacy of the state's road system. Although our earliest known bridges date to 1806. Seen here, this is the old Maryland 140 over the north branch of the Patapsco River that was part of the Reisterstown to Westminster Turnpike that has now been inundated in the Liberty Reservoir, and that's the reservoir that provides water to, one of the reservoirs that provides water to Baltimore City between Baltimore and Carroll counties. But even before the 20th century, as the colonists were building bridges on Maryland's roads by the late 17th century. For instance, the Somerset County Justices of the Peace agreed that they would oversee building a bridge at the, quote, waiting place at the head of the Minokan River west of Princess Anne in 1689. This is a view from the river from the Deal Island Road, which is Maryland 363, which is likely the colonial road going west towards the bay from Princess Anne. When I was in school, we didn't study many bridges. The Brooklyn Bridge, a suspension bridge designed by John Augustus Roebling in 1883 that connected Manhattan and Brooklyn, was one of the few that was ever mentioned. I'd been working at the Maryland Historical Trust for about 6 weeks when someone came to me and said I needed to attend a meeting of the Interagency Historic Bridge Review Committee, which was made up of representatives from the State Highway, the Maryland Historical Trust, and the Federal Highway Administration. And they were busy reviewing over 1,000 bridge forms to make determinations about which would be eligible for the National Register of Historic Places. And we began the Historic Bridge Program in 1995 when the State Highway Administration decided to replace the Knapp's Narrows Bridge that connected Tillman's Island with the mainland in Talbot County, and this is the Knapp's Narrow Bridge. And we made that decision in 1995. The bridge was the only counterweight bascule span, and the counterweight is that big, heavy, rectangular form, and the bascule is the white beam with the 6 painted on it. It's more than that, but just to give you a visual. It was the only counterweight bascule span in the state, and it was determined eligible for the National Register for being an example of a counterweight bascule span bridge. You're allowed to say that sort of thing. And as part of the mitigation for the adverse effect, which was the loss of the historic structure, under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, State Highway began its historic highway bridge inventory with the first historic bridge management plan in Maryland. And we covered bridge construction in Maryland from 1631 to 1960. Although we never tried to incorporate any of the county bridges into the historic bridge management plan, there are 3 Prince George's County bridges that were determined to be eligible for the National Register because we did include county bridges in our inventory, including the Governor's Road Bridge. We don't have an historic photo of that bridge, but we do have several other bridges, including the bridge on what used to be a segment of Livingston Road that got incorporated into Maryland 210 and has been replaced and widened several times as traffic along Maryland 210 has increased. But we have noticed that in the 1930s, there were many African Americans working as road construction crews. It was a difficult and low-paying job, but the records show that enslaved and freedmen, as well as recent immigrants, frequently took the jobs. The Knapp's Narrows Bridge has become the entrance to the Chesapeake Maritime Museum in St. Michael's. The bascule span, as you see here, still with the number 6 painted on it, is raised so that you're vehicle can pass through, and you would see the same thing if you were in a boat. I showed you earlier what we call the Three Bridges photo, and this is in Garrett County, and you can see the three bridges. They're all white, but which is yeah, they look very clean. They're not nearly that clean when you get up to them, but the Castleman River Bridge was built in 1813 as part of the National Road, and that was the road that connected Cumberland with Ohio, and then went on through Indiana and Illinois and went all the way to St. Louis. And it was the first federally funded highway construction project, and it took a while to convince everybody that it was the right thing to do, but that it was one of the few ways for people to go west in the early 19th century. The Castleman River Bridge was bypassed in 1932 by the bridge in the middle, which is US 40 alternate, and that's a Pratt through truss structure. You drive through the trusses, and that was bypassed in 1975 by Interstate 68, and you can see the two bridges at the top of the photo. And this is just an example of some of our historic photos and what the bridge looked like when construction was first completed. Another bridge out west is this bridge called the Blue Bridge, because it's always been painted blue, which spans the north branch of the Potomac River. And it's a two-span metal through arch that connects Cumberland with Ridgely, West Virginia. Cumberland, as you all have, Cumberland has a flooding problem, and those of you who have experienced flooding or know of the history of flooding along the Anacostia would recognize the problem. And the bridge sits high above the river, and all that concrete that you can see under the water as the river passes over is part of the flood control project that the Army Corps of Engineers did in the 1950s, about the same time that they were working on parts of the Anacostia River. Moving east, but still in Allegheny County, this is a bridge on a segment of highway we call Maryland 144 AE, and it's a concrete arch bridge from 1925. And if you look closely, you'll see railing and the second bridge above it, and that's actually that also is Maryland 144, and it was the 1930s bypass of the concrete arch bridge. And both bridges have been in place. This is an area that doesn't get a lot of traffic, so we maintain bridges. It's easier to maintain bridges that don't get a lot of traffic. Moving east, this is US 40 over Lichen Creek in western Washington County, and it's a form of the Weichert deck truss, which means that the substructure or those steel plates going into the piers is what carries the traffic. And we redid the metal railings, but because they're open and it can be dangerous when cars are going over, they're hidden behind Jersey barrier, but still very carefully maintained. So, And then you may recognize this bridge if you ever go to Frederick or go west past Frederick. This is this is Ridge Road over Interstate 70 on Catoctin Mountain, and it is an arch deck bridge, and you can see that the deck is being built on top of the arch, and so it makes it similar to the Lichen Creek Bridge and different from the Blue Bridge, because the Blue Bridge you drive through, again, you're driving through and past the arches, which are trusses. And this is what it looks like. Well, this is what it looked like when construction was finished. But it is it's considered a gateway to the west, and at the moment it is the only 1970s bridge in the state that's considered eligible for the National Register. We have a bridge that's made of aluminum, and this is Old Maryland 32 over what is now the CSX Railroad, but it was originally the B&O Railroad. And this is just outside of, I'm sorry, I didn't write that down, but anyway, it's over the B&O Railroad, the Patapsco, and you can, oh, can I go back? Yes, okay. What makes this bridge, besides the being made of aluminum, it was designed by the Fairchild company, and they made airplanes, and this is design is called the monocoque, and it is the triangular web shape, and it maintains that same shape on the exterior. And and this is the US 40 over the Patapsco River in Baltimore County. It's between Howard and Baltimore counties, and it's one of the state's 3 open spandrel concrete arch bridges, again from 1935. Rather than a solid spandrel, the columns support the deck, and the 3 arches and the arches form the substructure. We rehabilitated the bridge, taking off the deck and the columns down to the tops of these arches, and reconstructed it. The bridge is at the low point of the highway, so rather than maintaining the open railing, we did a blind arcade on the exterior. If you look at this photo on the right side, you'll see that it has that there isn't an opening, or you can't see through the parapet. And again, because it can be a rather dangerous situation when driving across the bridge. The oldest extant bridge that is still open to traffic is the Parkton Stone Arch in northern Baltimore County. This is Maryland 463 over Little Gunpowder Falls, and it was built in 1809 when it was part of the Baltimore to York, Pennsylvania Turnpike that made Baltimore the important city it was in the early 19th century. Stone has been more long-lasting, and the state's covered bridges all date from the middle of the 19th century, with one of them was completely rebuilt. State Highway does not control any of the covered bridges. They are 3 of them are in Frederick County, and one of them, and those belong to the Frederick County Department of Public Works. There's another one in Baltimore that I believe belongs to the Maryland Department of the Environment. there is another in Cecil County that belongs to the Cecil County Department of Public Works, and then there is another also in Cecil County, but it is on it belongs to the Natural Resources Department. But anyway, this two-span stone arch bridge is a remnant of the turnpike system from Baltimore, and originally Baltimore had 9 turnpikes going from the city, and actually US 1 was one of those turnpikes at one point. And let me go here first. In 1954, the Bethlehem Steel Plant Company at Sparrows Point was the largest steel mill in the world. The State Roads Commission worked with Bethlehem Steel to construct a road system for the plant, and this metal girder bridge on Maryland 151 over Maryland 151B, which is the highway or the road on the right, and the Back River Railroad, which was part of the railroad system that brought materials to the plant and took things away, was built that same year. The mill has since closed and new construction is occurring, and we're considering what to do with the bridge since traffic is not as heavy as it once was. On the eastern shore is characterized by movable bridges, which was a typical design because of the river traffic and the surrounding low shores. One example is the Snow Hill Bridge, seen here, which is Maryland 12 from 1931 and 1932, that again is a single leaf bastule span. You may have noticed that every once in a while I've interspersed old black and white photos. As I mentioned, we have an online photo archive, and it gives us a chance to learn about the way bridges were built. The box in the center, and I'm sorry, I don't have a way to make the image bigger, but just trust me. The box in the middle is stamped with the words Buffalo Bolt Company. So I Googled that one day to find out what was going on. And that led me to the North Tonawanda History Museum. And North Tonawanda is north of Buffalo, New York, on the Niagara River. And the executive director was very interested in my photo and explained what he thought was going on. He explained that there are bolts along the beam to the left of the red circle, and then there are rivets on the steel span, and well, actually there are many rivets, but just to look at those. And he said that the Buffalo Bolt Company in 1920 produced 600 million nuts, bolts, screws, rivets, and that was their record year. So 1932 might not have been such a great year, but we were certainly using them in Snow Hill, Maryland. And the man on the right here is standing by a water pump, probably to drain the cofferdam, which is the ground below. And he believed that the bolts were temporary and had been loosened so that they could do the riveting. And then another bridge is that's been important to us is the Dover Bridge, and this is between Talbot and Caroline counties, east of Easton, and this was built in 1933 to replace the little 1912 bridge that is right next to it. And the Dover Bridge is an unusual form of a three-pratt through truss because the center span is a swing span, and it was designed by the engineer John Greiner, whose engineering firm was most prolific in building the state's highway system in the 1930s, and they were they're still around, although the name has changed. They were URS for a while, and then they became AECOM, part of AECOM. But and in 1998, State Highway decided to replace the Dover Bridge, which again was an adverse effect, but the bridge office agreed to leave the structure in place. And so this is what it looked like a year ago, with the middle span left in the open position so that boat traffic could get through. And as part of the mitigation for the adverse effect, we did 2 panels for about the history, because again, it goes back to the 17th century. There's a house not far from there that was built in 1685. So there have been people in the area for a long time. But back to Prince George's County, the task of identifying bridges in photos fell to several state highway architectural historians, and for a while, Hills Bridge was mislabeled as being the Maryland 214 bridge over the Patapsco River because the bridges looked so much alike. And then I was able to turn my attention to it, and I knew that Hills Bridge was not the same thing as Maryland 214, so I've been trying to correct this. Hills Bridge carried the road from Upper Marlboro past Compton Bassett on the west side of the Patuxent to Wason's Corner and further south towards Prince Frederick. And this is the 1920s bridge. And the bridge was an important crossing since it connected those towns and demonstrated how the State Roads Commission worked to connect various county seats to each other and then to Baltimore, which had been the goal since 1908. And we, as I showed you with the Dover Bridge, this is the construction of the 1932 bridge, and it was, and this is what it looked like when they finished in October of 1932, and this is looking at it. Compton Bassett is off on your left, and this is the new road that hasn't been paved yet, but would be very shortly. So moving slightly west, this is Carroll Avenue, or near Tacoma Park. And I know that that's not, this is Montgomery County, but I'll explain in just a second. On September 14th, 1932, the Washington Post reported that a group of nearly 3,000 men, women, and children had gathered on the deck of the Sligo Creek Bridge carrying Carroll County over Sligo Creek on the north side of Tacoma Park for the opening of the new bridge. Prominent among the dignitaries on the bridge that day were representatives from the National Capital Park and Planning Commission, or the NCPC, and the Maryland State Roads Commission. The National Capital Park and Planning Commission had overseen the creation of the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission and was the federal agency charged with managing the Capper-Crampton Act of 1930, which provided funding for parkland acquisition in both Montgomery and Prince George's counties, including the Sligo Creek Bridge and the Parkway. This gentleman is Lieutenant Colonel, or actually, I beg your pardon, he was at this point a Colonel, Ulysses S. Grant III, so he was the president's great-grandson, and he was also the NCPC chairman, commented during the opening that the bridge is one monument to political promises kept in concrete form, since he was overseeing the creation of the Capital Region's parks. The State Roads Commission also built other concrete arch bridges in Prince George's counties. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a photo from 1916 of the Sligo Creek Bridge, and again, we took down the columns all the way to the tops of the arches to reconstruct it, and it's become a very popular bridge. But we were busy at the same time as we were constructing the Sligo Creek Bridge. We were also building bridges in Prince George's County, such as the bridge at Riverdale Road over the northeast branch of the Anacostia in 1931, as well as the Riggs Road at the Adelphi Mill. And this is the bridge that was there in the 1920s, and this is what this is the concrete arch bridge that we built in 1932 over the northwest branch. As Colonel Grant noted, the State Roads Commission had kept its commitment to add beauty to the county's parks by using arch bridges. And so this is the end of my talk. And although Maryland's bridges come in all sizes and shapes and are as much a product of the locale and the environment as the amount of money the government or turnpike owners had to spend, the 1930s was a time when labor and materials were inexpensive, and the state used the opportunity to provide good roads and bridges to Maryland citizens, as we continue to do today. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, here I am. Okay, that was awesome. Bridges are something that are everywhere, and I feel like they're a piece of history that, you know, just go unnoticed. So this was really, really amazing to have you talk about bridges with us tonight.
Good. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, in watching you and your lecture, I noticed a lot of bridges that I've seen personally, and I don't really register them, you know what I mean? I just sort of drive over them, or but I never like take a moment to really think about the history of transportation and the history of road travel and, you know, all those sorts of things that really could be like, you know, beneficial to just thinking about the way that we as a society have imprinted ourselves upon the environment.
Yeah, well, that first photo that I showed you from 1914, we have a project with the county, and we haven't done anything about it because the engineers are sort of trying to figure out what to do. But where Bladensburg Road crosses over Lichen Creek, there was a problem, but I won't get into that. Everything's safe. I don't mean to scare anybody, but because of the dueling grounds, well, because of the history, because of, you know, the British going down that road on their way to burn Washington, and then the dueling grounds, that's an important area of history, and the bridge location is shifted, but that doesn't prevent, or there may be important, there are important places to our history, and thinking about it, and realizing just how old some of those roads are. Certainly that wooden bridge didn't date to 1814. That was probably wooden bridges have to be replaced probably every 15 years, I think. We take much better care of the covered bridges than just those poor little open exposed things.
Yeah, okay, we're getting some questions coming in. So the first is there a map of these bridge locations?
Oh, rats. Okay. I'm sorry, I thought that I copied this. I have links. I will send them to you and you can send them out. But yes, on our webpage, there is a story map. And there are two things, three things actually. I showed you the historic bridge context covers, and so those are available on our website. There is a story map of the 17 preservation priority bridges, which were most of the bridges that I showed you. And then we've been working diligently to put up the black and white photos. So again, there's a story map, and you all can look at that to your heart's content. And it would be great to have people visit it.
Yeah, I will send that out when I send out the YouTube link for the recording. So that'd be great.
All right, I will send it to you in the morning.
All right. And our next question is, of all the bridges that have been inventoried in the state, do you have a favorite?
Yes, but it's been taken down. The Weichert Truss is my favorite bridge. And the one over Lichen Creek is a modified version of that, but there's a road that goes between Sharpsburg and Shepherdstown, West Virginia. We call it the Maryland 34 Bridge. It was also known as the Rumsey Bridge, and that was a full-scale Weichert Truss. And unfortunately, bridges, we forget how big bridges are. But if you own a house, you know that you need to paint every couple of years. And the same is true for bridges. You have to pay attention. And even now, the president is talking about an infrastructure package that will help to update all of the roads and bridges in each state. And we need that money to do just ordinary basic maintenance. So that I should find a picture of it. It was recorded in the Maryland Inventory of Historic Properties, and it was determined eligible. And because it went into West Virginia, we had to tell West Virginia that they also had an eligible bridge, which was not something they'd expected. So, we have to play nicely with all of our neighbors.
Yes. That's a good segue into our next question. With so many great historic bridges in the area, what are some of the issues that come with trying to maintain them for the future?
Well, I mentioned several times, there are safety issues, and the bridge engineers tend to be very conservative. And there are, me as an architectural historian, I'm like, oh, this is a beautiful bridge, I want to save it. And they're like, no, no, we can't do this. When cars are flying down a hill at 50 miles an hour and the road is wet, bad things happen. And so So I have to respect the bridge engineers when they say this is a safety issue. And I know that's not an argument there isn't an argument I can make that would let me win. So so there's that. There's also just making sure that a bridge is being maintained. For instance, the aluminum bridge, the reason it's closed is that the aluminum is sitting on a steel part of the bridge. That doesn't seem like it would be a bad problem, but unfortunately, aluminum against steel, that causes a reaction. And the bridge engineers could not find a way to raise the bridge to insert some sort of a padding that would have prevented that, because they were afraid the aluminum was so soft, is probably not the right word, but it you know what aluminum is like. It can be very bendable, and so they were afraid that it would cause more damage if they tried to fix the situation. So they just said it'll be cheaper in the long run to build a new bridge, and so that's what they did. But we've stabilized it, so since it's not getting traffic, it should be okay.
Mm-hmm. And I have a question. Do you do any documentation of bridge locations that are the bridge themselves? The bridge itself is no longer there, but maybe the abutments are still there?
I have done a couple, and I did get a question. Gosh, this is probably 4 or 5 years ago. There are a group of people. It's no set group. It's just somebody gets interested and they start thinking about a bridge. But somebody wanted to know about the Priest Bridge it's where Maryland 450 crosses the Patapsco. I think I'm saying that right, going into Anne Arundel County. Yeah, it's sort of in the far northeast part of the county. And I ended up having to talk, or not having to, but I called the Georgetown archivist because there had been Jesuit priests living there, and I just didn't have any information about the bridge. It disappeared, I think, in the 18th century. So, because it had been a colonial bridge, and I just didn't have any information. But the archivist I talked to was happy to take the question and knew. So yes, we can. And sort of like the Hills Bridge, that's a good example. On all of the county maps, if you look where Maryland 4 crosses the river, it always says Hills Bridge, and it's said that since at least the 1830s or 40s. I'm thinking of the Martinet map, which is the 1860s, and also the county atlas, but I'm sure there must be an earlier map that says that Hills Bridge was there. Now I know that we took it down a long time ago, so I don't know that there's anything there, but that is a good place to start looking. Is the USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey's quadrangles, or the any of the 19th century maps. Mm-hmm. So that at least gives you an idea of what bridge you're looking for. And mm-hmm. Then and as I mentioned, we don't have many pictures of county bridges, but we do have but we have occasionally found pictures of old bridges before they were taken down in the 1930s.
Gotcha. All right, well, I think that's all the questions that we have. Anne, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. And to all the participants, you will get the link to the YouTube of the recording within the next couple days, as well as the links that Anne mentioned earlier with maps and the story maps, which I have looked at. That's really cool. So we will definitely send that out to you guys.
Good. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you, and everyone have a good night.